It's not starting yet. Oh no, it's starting over again. Let's go to the end. So, if you, during your application company, if you are going to work with an engagement platform, then most of the times, I'm not saying always, but what I saw last year and the year before, then most of the times the platforms were inside the company. So the examples that I showed you until so far were more like external platforms for outside of company. But since most of you are trying to mobilize people within a company, then an internal platform, like an intranet, could also be a tool to create that online platform or an internal platform, then that will be probably more applicable. And I have an example of that one, because for the chapter that I wrote, I also interviewed the CEO of Center Parks. And what they experienced was that their internal communication was really bad. They every year they had kind of like a satisfaction survey, and employees were really happy about working with Center Parks, but they were less satisfied with the internal communication. So they developed an internal platform, and what they did was they handed out an iPad to everyone, and last year they also handed out a mobile phone, so great employer, I want to work there. Yeah. And well, he told me something about the platform, and I will show you a small clip of that platform. It is, however, mostly in Dutch. So, well, if you cannot understand Dutch, then at least try to grasp the atmosphere there. And I think it's also clear when you don't understand Dutch, because then you can still see the interactions that were happening there. It's also a little bit in French, because Center Parks is also French. So. So they called this Happy. It was part of the Happy program they had, and the app, you know, Happy, you know, app. You understood that? Okay. Happy, and the app is in the word happy. So yeah, you can see that kind of like as the creative tension engine here. Happy is really inspiring people and also stimulating interactions, because a lot of the things that are on there were ideas of the employees themselves. So for example, an idea that they had was to make pictures when something was broken in a cottage, or something was damaged, and then put it on the app so the other departments could see it and could handle it. So that was their own idea. Instruction movies, like cleaning, how to clean a cottage, also their idea. So most of the content was the idea of the employees themselves. What they also did was try to connect the online and offline activities. So there is a sports program offered, there is coaching offered, there are offline events like with the rewards as well, and then you can put your pictures again on the online platform. And with this, the internal communication increased intensely. So it had a big effect. But when I asked him about this, because that is of course the difficult part of a platform, how do you get people to your platform? How do you make sure that people come to your platform? The CEO answered me like, well, work schedules are on there, so something indispensable, something that you cannot find on another location are there, so you are kind of like forced to go there. And the other thing which was really striking for me was that as an employer, or sorry, as an employee, you don't have a mail address. So the only way you can communicate is of course on this platform. So I think they are kind of like a little bit cheating, but still it really works for them. And they really make sure that this platform is an indispensable part of your work. And that is what we want for a platform, of course. But that's also the most difficult part of it. And well, I said cheating, but it's also really clever, of course. Do you have comments on this platform? What do you think? Well, I'm enthusiastic about it, as you can hear. But do you also see kind of like maybe disadvantages? Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting, but I'm thinking about if it's working in the phone as well, have an application.
Sorry, in it?
In the phone, application, smartphone as well.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know. Probably. I didn't ask him about that.
And people can post story, right?
Yeah.
First one thing just is conducting in a company, in an organization, and sometimes there are some confidential issues, like informations. If everything is exchanged in this, that's what about the security of this platform? Because I know in Taiwan some companies that have their own system in their computer that they can use.
Yeah.
So they cannot use back home, they can only use in the office computer.
You can use this back home as well?
Yeah.
But it's only accessible if you work at Center Parks. So in that way, it is not public, so to say. So you can use it at home as well. Yeah. And when they introduced it, a lot of people were afraid, like also on Facebook, they are afraid that you post nude pictures or something. They were afraid that kind of like that would happen here as well, or that people would become offensive or something like that. But then they just decided, we will see what happens. And nothing happened. Nothing like that happened.
Yeah.
So you also have to have trust in the people that you are working with, and just see what happens. And there was a small incident at a certain time, but then other employees responded to that. It was not necessary for the manager to have an intervention or something. So it organized, it repaired itself. And that is really important also with an engagement platform. You are in a certain ecosystem, and you want that ecosystem to be self-organizing and to repair problems themselves. So I'm not claiming that this will happen all the time, but in this case there were no problems. It was only really helpful for everyone.
But I think one platform like this is easier to be aware that with are talking to.
Yes.
It's not like
Of
the
course.
free space.
You are not anonymous.
Yes,
Exactly.
and you have to be
Yeah,
careful.
yeah.
It's they're co-workers.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But still, this is a really large organization with different locations, so you don't know everyone. And they were really scared that it was going to happen there as well. But yeah,
yes, like do you send an email, like a weird and offensive email for the whole company? No, you are aware of this.
exactly, because you still think, well, maybe I will get fired or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, the management was really scared for it when they introduced it. But that didn't happen. It was really kind of like building on each other and helping each other. So yeah, when we talk about social value, psychological value, because that was the thing that we were talking about, yeah, it really had psychological and social value for the people who work there. So that was the definition. Now I want to have a look, before we go to the assignments, I want to have a look at the building blocks of a platform. Because building a platform on its own is not the difficult part. Maintaining the platform is really, really hard, because it is a continuous process of discovery and experimentation. And it's impossible to predict how usage will take place. So when you have an intervention or an activity, you are never sure if it's going to be a success or not. And if it will stimulate interactions, you are never sure. Sometimes you have great ideas and nothing happens on a platform. And sometimes you just do something and then suddenly people take over. So that is a really, really hard part of having that platform. And then you can say, okay, well, if you don't have any clear rules or something, then just let's see what happens. We don't do anything. But on the contrary, I would say, you have to have in mind kind of like 100 possible scenarios. And you have to be, well, probably Suzanne and Frank already use that expression a lot of the times. You have to be over-prepared and under-structured. Is that a familiar expression? Yeah. So have multiple scenarios in your mind, but also be prepared to don't execute or to not execute any of them. Yeah, that can be really frustrating as well. But yeah, that's the thing with the building blocks or with a platform, because you don't know what will happen. But of course, you have some guidelines. And I will discuss some guidelines with you now. The building blocks. Before we go to the building blocks, I want to tip you. So if you Google online on platform design canvas, you can find a lot of empty sheets, because they designed a toolkit with, that can help you to build a platform as well. So I'm not going to explain that now, because that would take too much time. But if it's applicable for your research, for example, then just Google on it, you will find it immediately, and if you don't find it, you can mail me. But the building blocks. Those are the 4 building blocks, or as I must say, the 3 building blocks. The what of the platform, the why of the platform, and the how of the platform. Really simple. With those building blocks, you can design the platform at least. So let's zoom in on that. The what of the platform. On the what of the platform, you decide what is going to be shared and how you can facilitate that sharing. So you can have information, you can have goods and services, and you can have currency. So information is clear, I think. Sometimes, as a result of that information, also goods and services are shared. If it's more like a marketplace, then you can also share goods and services. The currency is maybe a little bit like, currency? Traditionally, we know currency as money, so paying for things. But on a platform, you can also pay each other with other ways than money. For example, on Facebook, you pay with likes. So you pay each other with likes, and then it will give you more attention or it will give you more influence. Retweeter on Twitter is paying with attention, or social capital. I will give an example of that later on. So what social capital exactly is. So that is the what of the platform. And here it is really important to look for the potential. Because if we look at Airbnb, in the time that we didn't have Airbnb yet, you could hire accommodation. You could also offer accommodation. And it was a little bit like unprofessional and clumsy. And now Airbnb, they saw the potential there. They saw a lot of things happening and they thought, okay, let's build a platform and bring that all together. So they saw potential there. So you have to look for the potential. That's really important. Then of course the why of the platform is also really, really important. The why of the platform. What is the core interaction that really gives value? And well, we already talked about that a little bit. So what you can do is, for example, look for something that is really indispensable in people's life on an internal platform. That can be mail, or that can be that can be a schedule, a roster, something really indispensable. So people will come back and you can build a relationship with them. Oh, sorry, that was too soon. You can also look for a relevant theme. A theme that is really relevant for people, so they will return. Like, I don't know, a certain music style or holiday. But like we already discussed, social and psychological value, yeah, that is the most memorable, transformative part of a platform. So appealing to people's pride, and let them improve their network, let them improve their identity with the platform. For example, holiday pictures. Everyone wants to share his best picture. It makes you pride if it's posted online. Yeah, that is a way, an intervention that appeals to people's pride. So you could do things like that. And then at the end, you have to summarize that in a narrative of positive opportunities. We already discussed that. The narrative of happy, the narrative of Nike Plus. So look for that, and in the master we kind of call that the creative tension engine, of course. Here another example of Meetup. You know Meetup? Yeah. Everyone? You use it? Yeah? What do you think about the... Okay, can you explain what it is?
No, I don't know.
No? Okay. The ones who know? Can you explain what it is?
Meetup is a platform online.
Yeah.
So when you are living abroad or something, you can look for the people who have a group in the same interest.
Yeah.
And they will like set the event and you can go on the date and time.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not only if you live abroad, it can also be in the Netherlands because I use it as well. And it's also connected to offline events. So they organize offline events, so you can find people with the same interests there, and then can go to offline events about that interest. So that is something that is really valuable for you. People with shared interests.
Actually, they are a platform guided to deliver an offline experience, actually.
Yeah.
They're just a channel to find the people who have the same interests.
Yeah.
So you can meet up offline.
So the interactions are more happening offline than online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they have interaction online, but it's just to make
Little
the
limited.
agreement.
Just
Yeah.
to make the
agreement.
real.
The final goal.
So maybe the online part is a little bit limited in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mean the way of engagement?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And the interactions. There is not a lot of interactions happening
There
there.
are not a lot of interactions actually. Once I received a message from one guy who was the owner of one group.
But I thought you just said that you
Yeah,
didn't know
because
it.
I didn't understand.
Oh.
That was tough. And upset, and the message was really nice,
Mhm.
wrote really well, but he was upset because of the engagement of people.
Ah, okay.
Like they
Okay.
were there, they accept to go, but they didn't go.
Ah, nobody
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Ah,
and-
okay.
And said, okay, it was in Utrecht. Said, okay, it will happen once, it happened twice, and now I'm gonna give some time and.
Okay. Good. Good that I hear this, because I think I'm going to remove this from my presentation now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the email. I still have the email because
Yeah.
he put some effort
Yeah.
on this email and.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So after you have established what could be the core interaction, right, the value that it has, you can have a look at 3 elements: the participants, the value unit, and a filter. So with the participants, it's really important to know that if there are participants anyway, are there enough participants? Because if you know beforehand that there will not be a lot of participants, why build that platform? I'm not saying you cannot build a platform, but ask yourself, is it still valuable if you don't have enough participants? What kind of participants do you have? Do you want to involve only the consumer, or are there also other stakeholders that you want to involve? Do you want you as a producer, what is going to be your role at the platform? Are you going to be really participating, or only giving the interventions or facilitating? And yeah, do you have the right participants, of course? So ask yourself those questions beforehand. Then the value unit, yeah, we kind of like discussed that already. What is the thing that actually is creating value on the platform? So what is the value unit? And you can have more value units. So there can be more things, of course, that creates value. And on Uber, although I don't think it is a platform, but not an engagement platform. No, I don't think so, but I don't know it well enough. But the value unit there is the list of taxi drivers, for example. And finally the filter, because the filter is more like, how can you make sure that people will get the information that they are looking for? And filter can be is also important offline. Because if you have an offline, what is the filter if you are offline? Let me ask you that question. So let's say that we have that the whole academy, the whole school, this whole building is an offline platform. What is the filter then?
For example, location filter can be a filter.
Yeah, but then you mean if you go online,
Yeah, for example, Uber, right? If I go online, I just need like taxi drivers around me.
Mhm.
I'm not really looking for who is available in New York. I just
Yeah.
want to know who is
Yeah,
available
exactly.
in
Yeah,
Denver,
that's
right?
also with Booking.com.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, of
you
course.
just look for the city that you want to go to. Yeah, but on an offline platform, that's all online, of course. So
Yeah.
that is perfect for online platforms. But in an offline platform, you have to think of signage, for example. So just simple signs, so you can find what you are looking for. That is the purpose of a filter. You can find what you are looking for. So on an offline platform, if necessary, it is signage. Or maybe a host can be the filter. So and then the why, or sorry, the how of the platform. At the how of the platform, the pull, facilitate, and match principles are important. Pull, facilitate, and match. For me, that's really easy to remember. Pull means that you are going to attract people, but you also want them to come back. So attract and retain. What are you going to do to attract people? Like, for example, the reward. But is the reward enough to keep them coming? So you also have to think about, yeah, what is valuable for them to keep coming back. The other one, facilitate, is more about the rules and the tools. And like I already said, unlike conventional enterprises, platforms have no control over the process of creating value. No control. So that makes it really, really hard. What they do, however, is they design an infrastructure in which value can be created and exchanged. So they can create something, but then they have no control what happens. They can, however, do something with rules and tools. For example, Lego platform that you mentioned, they offer tools to create new designs. So you have kind of like a software program in which you can create new Lego designs. And so, yeah, they offer you tools. Rules is a little bit more delicate, because I would say if it's not really necessary, then don't have rules, or at least only a couple of them, and make them as simple as possible. So let the self-organizing system take over and make their own rules if necessary. But it's important that people feel the freedom to act and to interact with one another. So for example, on Twitter, there is a rule that a tweet has a maximum of 140 characters. That is a rule. But at the same time, Twitter stayed really open for self-organizing activities because of the hashtag, which had been introduced by a user. So it's not introduced by Twitter itself, it had been introduced by a user, and it was ultimately incorporated in the main rules. So they let the system kind of like take over, and they saw that a lot of energy arised with that hashtag. Everyone was using it and enthusiastic about it, and they immediately made use of that energy. So that is, in the facilitating part, really important. Observe what happens and look for interactions or activities or interventions that generate new energy, that generate new ideas, or that have a multiplying effect on other activities. That is important when you are the facilitator. And make use of that energy. Make smart use of that energy. And if something dies, if nothing happens, then just let it go. But don't wait too long. So you also have to act a little bit. Not only observing, but also act. Then the match principle is about collect and link. Collect and link. You want to collect data from your users so you can employ that in a good way. You want to have that profound understanding of your users' values and needs, because then you can organize new interventions and activities that are aligned with those values and needs. So you have to collect data, but you also have to collect data because you want to link stakeholders with each other. So it's really important to do that as well. You have to think about that. How can you do that? Maybe by introducing an app, or having a poll, or looking very closely at reviews or whatever they are posting online, and collect data out of that. Maybe have something with a game element in it. So then, and I think I already said this, openness for self-organization, organizing interactions in the ecosystem, but also for serendipity. Do you know that word,
yes.
serendipity? Can someone explain what serendipity is?
It's when you find something that you were not looking for, and
Yeah.
then this is more even, sometimes this is even more meaningful than
Yeah.
what you were expecting.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah.
A good coincidence, or
Yeah, a good coincidence, an unexpected surprise. Yeah. Yeah. So we are looking for that self-organizing principle in the organization, and how can we stimulate that, and we make use of the serendipity moments, the energy moments. And a really nice example of that, and that's the last example I will give to you, is the example of Seeds to Meet. Familiar with Seeds to Meet?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that was Central Station.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. It's everywhere. It's also gone international, so it's all over the world. But it started with no more than a table for 20 persons and a free lunch at Meeting Masters in Utrecht. That's why it started. The founders, they had something like, well, okay, Meeting Masters is already functioning. That was kind of like a center where people could meet and have meetings and that kind of stuff. And well, we have a table, spare table. We already have to make lunch, so let's just offer it to people who want to work here and see what happens. And it was a tremendous success. And the founders, they resisted the temptation to convert it into a traditional business model. So it's still like it started. What they do is offer workspace, and the only thing, and a free lunch. Free lunch is really important because it's a really nice lunch. And what they only ask for you in return is a contribution to the social capital. And the social capital is more like knowledge, creativity, networks. So you can decide for yourself how you contribute. You can, for example, introduce people to your network, or provide a workshop on creativity or whatever, or a course. That is the way that you pay. So you don't pay with money, you pay with social capital. And they really truly believe, the founders, that access to networks and social capital is more important than possessions and ownership. And that is why, and at the time, or not at the time, but at the moment, they expanded. It's more than only this. They also have events, and they have even an integration program for refugees. They have meetings. They have a lot of things. But I'm going to show you a small clip of it. Yep.
They also make money renting rooms for meetings.
Yeah.
Because if you go by yourself, that's okay. But if you have
yeah, that's true. So they still use money, but social capital is their currency as well. So this is the clip. Let's have a look at that.
Seeds to Meet is a big office space for independent entrepreneurs. Seeds to Meet is also a space for people who want to have a closed-off meeting, like a brainstorm session or an out-of-the-box meeting. We have a big tech cloud where we can see all the knowledge present. It's on the bulletin board.
If you need a specific knowledge, then you can send a message to that person, and he can help you out with your questions about some specific area.
If I sit just at home, I can get a bit tired after some time, but I find that this atmosphere, Seeds to Meet, really keeps me alert and energized and focused. I think the lunch is really fresh here, and I also like that these meetings can happen. Like, many times I have made really nice connections.
When you enter, you feel the energy of people and things happening, and people are creating stuff. So I met a lot of people here that also gave me assignments. So I went on holiday to Switzerland, and I met some friends from Seeds to Meet. I also met my business associate here. So Seeds to Meet gave me the area, the environment to flourish and to be an entrepreneur and be successful way quicker than I would if I would have been in my own room. So yeah, for me it's great.
So you see serendipity here, right? Because, for example, the final person who was interviewed, he said, I met my business partner here, serendipity. I met a lot of friends, and they even have a serendipity machine, Seeds to Meet. And okay, serendipity is unexpected. So I don't think the serendipity machine is really unexpected, because what they have there is kind of like an overview when you come in, from who is there and which knowledge they have, so you can easily connect. So if that is serendipity, I'm not quite sure, but it's really nice at least. And they do things offline and online, so that's really connected. And offline, for example, they also have interventions. They don't have an office dog, but what they have is kind of like, I don't know if this is still the case. So if you know Seeds to Meet, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but when they started, they deliberately located the coffee machine at a spot where you had to meet people. So interactions, they always start at the coffee machine, of course, but it was not like, okay, this is the most suitable spot. No, let's do it like there, because then you have to go like through here, and then you have to meet people. So they were stimulating interactions by deliberately choosing a certain spot for the coffee machine.
But who designed this idea is not looking for profit. It's just like about the idea.
They weren't looking for profit. No, and then what happened was that there was a lot of attention for this and viral actions, and that proved on itself to be enough to ensure survival. So the viral attention and that kind of stuff. But now I think, because it has grown and that kind of stuff, I think there is money involved as well, because
and they will have the real estate.
I think so, because I've been in the BUas place, and she said that they are investing a lot in the Tilburg Unity, and also in Eindhoven, because of course Eindhoven is a big city, and they don't invest that much in Den Bosch, because the others are more profitable. And then I asked, how do you make money? And she said renting their rooms for meetings, but I cannot believe that they make that much money just renting the room for meetings.
Yeah,
It's
they
like few rooms.
They still have, you can look also online for publications of the founders, for example, and they are still really into the social capital thing and the network thing. They want to contribute something to people's lives, and of course they need money as well. But they say that's not their main goal. So yeah.
Okay. I would like to know how they really make.
Yeah, it would be nice to have an interview or something.
I asked was not people who were running the business. It was just the perception. So she didn't know.
No. Would be nice.
Maybe they didn't break through, but they're just like building up.
Yeah.
Still like the concept.
Yeah.
But if you are putting money and investing in different places, so they were making money as well.
Well, so let's continue to the assignment, because time is running fast. So I talked about Netflix. I talked about the fact that I did an internship there, and I did research on their internal network. So they developed an internal platform, I have to say. So they developed an internal platform themselves, like for example Yammer or an intranet. So they made their own design. But what they did with that is they used it at their own company, of course, but they also sell it to other companies. And then you can personalize it a little according to your own organizational values, and you can really show your identity with that. But they sell their internal platform design to outside companies. What they experience, however, and it's not like this is unique, because every platform has the same difficulty,